Well, the dairy industry is celebrating a win for the first USMCA trade dispute settlement. The panel found Canada is improperly restricting access to its market, which violates its tariff rate quota commitments. Well, Shawna Morris with the National Milk Producers Federation and the U.S. Dairy Export Council joins us now with the latest. And thank you very much for your time here this morning, Shawna. Now, if you would, give us a little bit of background on this dispute and, of course, how we got to this point.
Absolutely, and thanks for having me. Well, first I'd say that really we're not surprised that the first dispute under USMCA ended up being a dairy one against Canada. And that's because Canada has such a long track record of trying to play games with access to its market and really just not living up to its dairy trade commitments. That's why prep for the win that was announced this week really went all the way back to the negotiations. The U.S. negotiating team did a great job putting in place really clear text saying that Canada couldn't earmark specific parts of TRQs just for its processors. And then despite that, when the agreement got implemented and approved in 2020, that's exactly what the Canadians did. So we were thrilled that with strong congressional support from both parties, the USTR ultimately decided that this could not stand and needed to be challenged. They launched that case in May of last year, and then we saw the results of it come out this week with the U.S. prevailing.
So what does this ruling mean for our U.S. dairy farmers?
It means that we actually get to take full advantage of the promised access into the Canadian market the USMCA offered. That's, of course, assuming that the Canadians follow through and comply here. They have a bit of time to do that still. We see this as being important both in terms of the volume of product that's able to be exported to the Canadian market, but also the value, the different mix of products and being able to sell to a wide variety of companies up in Canada, we think will help maximize the opportunities on the value product side for dairy farmers and dairy processors.
Now, what about Canada's dairy industry? What ripple effects might there be as a result?
Well, the biggest effect on the Canadian dairy industry side really is the core of the ruling here, which is to say that it's not right and it cannot stand for Canadian processors to keep virtually all of the tariff rate quota access in their own hands. And instead, it needs spread out through other companies in supply chain, importers, distributors, retailers, et cetera. So that's certainly one of the biggest upshots that we expect to see here. It's really important to keep in mind, though, that unlike effectively all other agricultural or other trade between the U.S. and Canada, USMCA doesn't give us totally open access to the Canadian market. We're talking about a certain limited amount of product that the agreement granted. We're just trying to make sure that we have the full ability to use what the Canadians promised to give.
All right, Shawna, thank you very much for your insight today. Senior Vice President for Trade with the National Milk Producers Federation and U.S. Dairy Export Council, Shawna Morris, on the phone with us today out of Arlington, Virginia.